The Council had seen civilizations rise and fall across 1,000 worlds. They were the keepers of balance, ancient beings who measured the worth of species by the sum of their logic, their foresight, their order. Their chambers were vast, shaped like the inside of a crystalline cathedral, where light bent and shimmered across polished surfaces. They observed life as one might study a slow, fascinating experiment, but nothing had ever surprised them like humanity. It began on a quiet blue planet, the third from its star, with oceans that gleamed like liquid sapphire and forests stretching like green oceans under clouds. The Council watched, as they always did, through the prism of time, observing humanity's peculiar rise from simple curiosity to unrelenting ambition. Humans were fragile, yes. Their bodies broke easily. Their lifespans were brief, and yet their eyes held storms. The Council noticed this, that stubborn glint, a stubborn spark in the hearts of those who should have been easily extinguished. For centuries, humanity had lived in chaos. Wars, famine, disease, they had stumbled through it all, clawing their way toward understanding. And yet somehow they endured. That endurance became something the Council could not compute. Their deliberations grew tense, voices like wind brushing against icy cliffs. "Observe them now," said Xylar, the eldest among them, his voice deep as a black hole. "They speak of leaving their planet as if it is their right, not their gift." "They are incapable," replied Selena, her tone a soft chime of reason. "Their bodies will fail. Their minds, fragile as glass. Any attempt beyond their world is folly. But they dream," Xylar said, almost in awe. "And dreams are unpredictable." And then it happened. Humanity began to build vessels that stretched into the heavens, ships that glimmered like silver reeds against the black sky. Entire nations poured their ingenuity into creating machines that could carry fragile human bodies across the cold void of space. The Council watched with detached curiosity at first. They expected failure, catastrophe, something to justify their long-held skepticism. The first launch came quietly, almost humbly, under the twilight of a reddening sun. A small crew, 6 souls ascending in a shuttle that looked far too delicate to hold their lives. The Council leaned closer, observing the trembling hands, the rapid heartbeats that could almost be felt through the lens of their perception. Then came the roar, not just of engines but of hope, a sound the Council had never catalogued. The vessel tore through the atmosphere, leaving trails of light and fire that lingered like tears across the sky. For a moment, the room of crystalline shadows fell silent. Even beings who had watched billions of deaths, billions of civilizations crumble, felt an unfamiliar weight settle in their collective consciousness. They are leaving," Selena whispered, a rare tremor in her voice. "Yes," Xylar replied, "and they carry more than ships. They carry hope, defiance, will." The Council had never seen such will before. Logic dictated humans should fail. Probability suggested collapse. Yet the humans, fragile and fleeting, had done the impossible. They had stepped beyond the cradle of their world, and as the shuttle vanished into the blackness, the Council felt the first prick of something unfamiliar. Curiosity blended with unease, awe laced with foreboding. For the first time in millennia, they were uncertain of the outcome. On the planet below, people watched the night sky with tears and laughter intertwined. Children pointed at streaks of fire that danced above clouds. Lovers held hands in quiet reverence, and elders whispered to those too young to understand the weight of the moment. They are leaving. And maybe, just maybe, they will return stronger than the fear that once held us down. The Council, observing from their vaulted chambers, noted the humans' emotion as if reading a language unspoken. Xylar's gaze lingered on the tiny planet, brilliant in the void. "They may yet surpass expectation," he murmured, "or destroy themselves entirely. But this spark..." Selena's eyes narrowed, a shadow of doubt crossing her features. "A spark alone does not a civilization make." Xylar's lips curved almost like a human smile, the first real expression of something like admiration in centuries. "No," he agreed, "but it is enough to make us watch, and perhaps to regret if we underestimate it." And so, the first humans vanished into the endless dark, carrying fragile bodies, fierce hearts, and dreams too large to be measured by the cold calculations of the Council. Somewhere deep inside the ancient beings a warning stirred, subtle, terrifying, yet dazzling. Humanity was not finished, not yet. And in that silence, among crystals that had seen eternity, the council felt a tremor of what they could not name. A new chapter had begun. The void of space was endless. Silence stretched like a vast ocean, swallowing the light of distant suns, but humanity carried warmth within fragile metal shells. Captain Alara Thorne gazed through the observation window of the Aetheris, her fingers brushing the cold glass as if she could touch the infinite. Below her, Earth had become a blue dot, tiny, fragile, beautiful, and she could almost hear the whispers of the past, the laughter of her grandmother, the streets of her childhood, the green forests that had once seemed eternal. Her crew, 6 souls, diverse and resilient, moved with quiet precision. Each face carried shadows of fear and glimmers of hope, reflections of humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender. Ilara's second-in-command, Kale, broke the silence. "Captain, sensors are reading an anomaly in the Hespera Rift," he said, voice tense yet tinged with wonder. "It's unlike anything catalogued." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Describe it." Kyle's fingers danced over the controls. Energy readings off the charts. Structure, almost like a city floating in space. A murmur ran through the crew. The council had not yet interfered. Their eyes followed from distant chambers, unblinking, calculating. They had not anticipated humans reaching such deep regions of space so quickly. Their probability matrices, their cold logic, suggested failure long before this point. And yet here humanity was, fragile vessels against the dark, encountering wonders unimagined. "Prepare the shuttle," Ilara ordered, her voice steady. "We approach carefully. Observation only." The Aetheris glided closer to the anomaly, which shimmered like a mirage, a lattice of light suspended in the void. Energy pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, and for the first time the humans felt the weight of insignificance. This isn't natural," whispered Soren the engineer. "It's intelligent," Ilara nodded. "All life leaves traces. Maybe we're seeing theirs." As the shuttle descended, the anomaly shifted as if aware of their approach. Patterns of light flickered, forming symbols that spoke directly to something deep in the human mind. Memory, instinct, longing. The crew felt a strange resonance, a tug at their souls, a sense that they were being measured. Miles away, the council's chambers shimmered with tension. Selena leaned forward, crystalline fingers clasped together. "They are touching the unknown, and they understand it," she said, almost in disbelief. "No species should grasp this so soon." Xylar's gaze remained fixed on the tiny dot representing humanity. "They are dangerous," he whispered, not in malice but in potential. "They do not fear the unknown, Selena. They embrace it." Back on the shuttle, Ilara's crew approached the heart of the anomaly. A sudden pulse of light filled the cabin, washing every corner in a golden glow. Each human staggered slightly, as if the light carried knowledge older than their species. Then came a voice, not audible but felt. Curiosity, warning, invitation. Ilara closed her eyes. "We are here," she whispered. "We do not know what we are touching, but we must." Kyle gripped her arm. "Do you feel it? Something calling?" "Yes," she said, "and I feel that leaving is no longer an option." "Not yet." The anomaly responded, folding space, revealing corridors lined with energy, pulsating like veins, alive in a way humans had never imagined. Their fear flickered against the edges of wonder. The Aetheris floated inside, carrying 6 fragile humans who somehow felt infinite. And then it happened. A sudden shockwave rippled through the shuttle. Instruments flashed, systems faltered. Yet the humans held. Their resilience was startling, raw, and unmeasured. The anomaly tested them, and though alarms blared, hearts raced, no one panicked. Instead, they adapted, worked together, trusted one another in ways that the Council had never predicted. Miles above, the Council felt it too. Shock, disbelief, awe, all tangled like light bending in crystal. Xylar's voice, almost lost in the trembling of his own certainty, said, "They survive. They always survive. And each time they learn faster than expected." Selena's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps we have misjudged them." Xylar did not answer. He only watched, feeling a tremor of something he could not name. The first stirrings of fear. Humanity, in its fragile imperfection, was not only enduring, they were evolving. adapting to the impossible in ways logic could not contain. On the shuttle, Alara and her crew pressed deeper into the anomaly, hearts beating in unison with the pulsing light. They were explorers, fragile yet unyielding, walking into a mystery older than their world. And somewhere in the void, the Council watched, realizing the first truth of humanity's journey. You cannot cage a species that refuses to be caged. The anomaly had become more than a puzzle. It was a mirror reflecting not just light but the humans themselves. Inside its golden corridors, Captain Alara Thorne and her crew moved with reverence. Each step echoed faintly, vibrating as if the structure responded to thought and intention. Every pulse of energy seemed alive, sentient, a language the mind could almost but not quite decipher. Soren, the engineer, stopped suddenly, eyes wide. "It's reacting to us," he whispered. "Not just to movement, to our resolve." Alara nodded slowly. "We are fragile," she said aloud, "and yet, here we are." Perhaps that's the point. The anomaly seemed to understand. It pulsed with warmth when they helped one another, flickered with unease when doubt crept in. Fear was not absence of courage, Alara realized. It was courage tested. Back in the Council's crystalline chamber, Selena shifted uncomfortably. "They are engaging something. Sentient. We cannot quantify it, and yet they do not retreat." Xylar's gaze narrowed. "No species should persist under this test. They should fail." "But they don't," Selena murmured, a thread of tension in her voice. "They rise to meet it. Every time." The Council, ancient and calculating, had never experienced this, a species unbound by probability. Humanity was breaking patterns, challenging every expectation the Council had long considered immutable. Xylar felt a pang, something like dread, but sharper, brighter, and faster. Inside the anomaly, Kyle approached a chamber of floating glyphs, symbols etched in light and energy. Each glyph seemed to shift according to thought, forming patterns that hinted at knowledge beyond time. He reached out almost instinctively, and the glyphs rearranged themselves. "It's teaching us," Kale breathed. "Or testing us. I can't tell the difference." Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Perhaps there is no difference. Perhaps understanding is courage in its rawest form." Their progress was interrupted by a sudden surge, a pulse that knocked systems offline for a heartbeat. Yet in that moment they learned something vital. Fear was not an end, but a doorway. They pressed on, trembling and uncertain, yet unstoppable. The Council watched, silent and tense. Selena's hand hovered over a console, trembling. "They are remarkable. No, more than that, they are dangerous." Xylar's eyes were fixed, unblinking, on the tiny representations of humans navigating the anomaly. "I see it now," he murmured. "It's not their strength, nor their technology, nor their numbers. It is their spirit. A force we cannot measure. They bend the impossible to their will, because they refuse to accept it as impossible." On the human side, Alara felt something awaken, a sense not of triumph, but of responsibility. "This anomaly," she said quietly, "it is a test, not just of intellect, but of our hearts. We cannot fail because failure would not just be ours. It would be humanity's loss. And we are not built for that." Each crew member felt it, the weight of generations, of ancestors who had dreamed of stars while their feet remained in dust, the whispers of every human who had dared to hope when hope itself seemed foolish. That hope now coursed through them, delicate but unyielding, fragile yet unbreakable. A sudden shift in the anomaly revealed a chamber filled with radiant orbs, each one reflecting a memory, a choice, a fear overcome. As they passed through, the crew glimpsed fragments of their own lives, the moments that had defined them, the doubts that had almost broken them, the courage that had carried them forward. "Look," whispered Soren. It shows us who we are, not what we think we are, but who we truly are." Alara nodded. "We are fragile. We are flawed. And yet, we endure. That is our strength." Miles away, the Council felt the anomaly resonate across light years, and for the first time they sensed humanity not as observers, but as participants in a force beyond comprehension. Xylar's voice was quiet, but it trembled with something he had not felt in millennia. Awe. "They are evolving," he said, "and not just in body or mind, in spirit. A species that learns from fear, that measures courage by the heart, that thrives not in comfort but in challenge. I did not predict this." Selena's eyes were fixed on the holographic humans navigating the anomaly. Perhaps we underestimated them, she admitted. Perhaps it is too late for us to dictate their limits. And as the humans pressed further into the golden labyrinth, stepping into light that seemed older than stars, the council felt it, the first tremor of regret. Not for themselves, but for the hubris that had allowed them to dismiss what they could not calculate. Somewhere in the void, beyond comprehension, a spark was forming, a spark that no logic, no calculation, no ancient council could contain, and the humans, fragile and fleeting, were at the heart of it. They were small, they were fragile, but they were unstoppable. The anomaly had become more than a labyrinth of energy. It had become a mirror of possibility, reflecting not just who humanity was, but who they could be. Captain Alara Thorne floated in the observation chamber of the Aetheris, eyes wide as the walls shimmered with patterns that seemed alive. Every pulse of light carried not only information but emotion, curiosity, caution, encouragement, challenge. Kale approached, voice hushed. It's adapting to us, responding, learning. Alara nodded slowly. Then so must we. We cannot be afraid to change. We cannot be afraid to reach further than we think possible. The crew moved as one, fragile bodies navigating corridors of golden energy. Each step was a dialogue, a negotiation with forces that seemed older than galaxies. They encountered obstacles not just of physics, but of perception. Corridors that twisted impossibly, walls that reflected fears and doubts, and chambers where time itself appeared to flow unevenly. And yet humanity persisted. They adapted using instinct, logic, and trust in one another. Each success, each small triumph, rippled through the anomaly, and the energy responded, pulsing brighter, almost approvingly. Back in the council's chambers, tension simmered. Selena's crystalline fingers tapped impatiently on a console. They are beyond comprehension, she said softly. We watch, and yet we cannot predict their choices. Xylar's gaze remained locked on the holographic representation of the humans. They are rewriting the rules of survival, not through strength, not through conquest, but through will. They defy expectation because they refuse to submit to it. A sudden flare of light from the anomaly startled the humans. The walls dissolved into a starfield, endless and infinite, as if the structure had shifted entirely. Stars streaked past their eyes, and they realized they were no longer within the anomaly. They were traveling, moving through a corridor of pure light that bent and folded space itself. Hold on, Alara shouted, gripping the controls. We don't know where this will take us. Soren's voice trembled not from fear but awe. It's beautiful, it's alive. The anomaly pulsed around them, sending waves of energy that aligned with their thoughts, their emotions, their intentions. It tested them, yes, but not destructively. It challenged them, shaped them, taught them. Humanity, in its fragile imperfection, was learning faster than any machine, faster than any calculation. In the council chambers, the ancient beings shifted uneasily. Selena whispered almost to herself. They are evolving beyond observation. I do not understand how, yet I feel it. The anomaly responds to them differently than to anything before. Xylar's eyes narrowed. Perhaps they were never meant to be understood. Perhaps the measure of their worth is beyond our comprehension. On the ship, Alara felt the same truth. The stars stretched endlessly, and yet, with each pulse of the anomaly, she sensed possibility. Possibility not just for survival, but for greatness, for transformation. Humanity's fragile bodies were vessels for courage, their minds engines of innovation, their hearts the compass that guided them where reason alone could not. Kyle looked over her shoulder. Captain, look at the light, it's pointing somewhere. I don't know why, but it feels like hope. Alara's eyes glistened. Then we follow it. Not because it is safe, but because it is ours to follow. The anomaly shimmered once more, and the ship emerged into a new expanse. A nebula of colors so vivid it defied description, waves of gas and light that danced like auroras across the black canvas of space. Within the nebula, a planet hung, small and fragile, yet radiant, untouched, perfect in its quiet beauty. This is our new beginning, Alara whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship. We've crossed the edge, and we've survived. The council recoiled slightly, the first hints of real fear stirring. Xylar's voice trembled. They have not merely survived, they have surpassed expectation. They stand at the edge of creation itself and have not faltered. Selena swallowed hard. They are unstoppable. And as the humans prepared to descend toward the radiant planet, hearts pounding with awe and determination, the council felt a certainty that shook the foundations of their centuries-long wisdom. Humanity's journey was no longer a story to be observed. It was a force that could not be contained, calculated, or controlled. For the first time, the council understood the magnitude of their error. In their arrogance, they had measured humanity by rules that humanity had never intended to follow. And now, as the humans floated toward their fragile new world, hope blazing brighter than any star, regret began to stir, and it would grow, like a supernova waiting to explode. Somewhere deep in the void, a warning flickered, but it was too late. Humanity was already beyond the edge, and nothing would ever be the same. The planet beneath the nebula hung in silence, small, fragile, untouched. Its oceans shimmered in shades of sapphire and emerald. Forests stretched like green oceans under alien suns, and its atmosphere was breathable, a miracle of precision. Captain Alara Thorne stared through the observation window of the Aetheris, heart pounding in quiet reverence. This was not just a world. This was opportunity. Her crew moved with careful urgency, every action deliberate, as if the planet itself demanded respect. Landing was precise, each thruster firing in harmony with the gentle pull of gravity. The ship kissed the surface and settled among tall, whispering trees, their leaves glowing faintly under twin suns. Ilara exhaled. We've arrived. But this is only the beginning. We survive, yes, but we must endure. We must grow. Kale knelt near the soil, letting his fingers brush the earth. It's alive. Not in a way we can control, but in a way that feels welcoming. Soren wandered toward a crystalline stream, watching water ripple around rocks that seemed to hum with energy. Everything here responds to us, not violently but intentionally. It's as if the world itself is observing, waiting to see what we will do. Ilara nodded. Then we act with care. We leave nothing that we cannot respect. We take nothing that does not ask to be taken. Humanity cannot repeat the mistakes of Earth. Back in the council's chambers, Selena pressed her hands to the console. They've landed, and they adapt faster than anticipated. The planet, the anomaly, it has given them tools, insight, a place to grow. And they will not fail. Xylar's gaze remained fixed. No species should be this resilient. No species should turn the impossible into opportunity so naturally. They are extraordinary. On the planet, humans began to explore. Every footstep revealed new wonders. Plants that shimmered with internal light, creatures that seemed sentient yet non-threatening, and landscapes that shifted subtly as though alive. Each discovery sparked awe, but also a quiet reckoning within the crew. Humanity was capable of more than survival. They could thrive here, flourish where no one had before. Ilara gathered her crew around a small fire as twilight fell. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. This is our first night on a new world, she said softly. We came here because we dared to hope. Now hope must become action. We must be wise, patient, and resilient. This world can teach us, if we are willing to learn. Kale spoke, voice low and contemplative. Do you think we can do it? Build something lasting? Something that honors Earth, honors humanity? Ilara looked around at the faces illuminated by firelight, eyes reflecting the twin suns' last gleam. We can, because we have no choice but to try. Because failure is not an option when the future of humanity depends on us. We are fragile, yes, but we endure. And endurance is a kind of strength no calculation can predict. Back in the council, tension reached its apex. Selena's crystalline form trembled as she spoke. They are not only surviving, they are transforming. Every choice, every act of cooperation, every step. They grow stronger, wiser, more connected. And they do it without the cold logic that binds us. Xylar finally spoke, his voice low and resonant like distant thunder. We misjudged them, entirely. Humanity is not a species to be measured, contained, or controlled. They are a force, and now, on this new world, they will bloom beyond anything we imagined. Meanwhile, on the planet, Ilara's crew began constructing their first shelters, improvising with the unique materials around them. They worked together, fragile hands lifting rocks that shimmered like crystals, tying vines that glowed faintly. Each action was deliberate, careful. A promise whispered into the wind. We are here and we will endure. At night, as the twins sat below the horizon and the stars shimmered above, humans lay on the ground gazing upward. Children, born of Earth but destined for the stars, asked questions too vast for immediate answers. Elders, guardians of knowledge, whispered stories of home while plotting the future. And Alara, standing in quiet awe, realized that humanity had crossed more than space. They had crossed the boundaries of expectation, fear, and limitation, and somewhere, far across the void, the council watched in silence. The first stirrings of true regret spread like wildfire. Humanity was no longer a subject of observation. They were architects of possibility, and the council understood finally that they had underestimated a force that could not be contained or predicted. For the first time, they feared what they had allowed to grow. And on the new world, beneath alien suns and a sky alive with color, humanity slept, fragile, hopeful, and unbroken. The seeds of a new dawn had been planted. Humanity had begun to settle on the radiant planet, a fragile cluster of life at the edge of a nebula. Yet the world itself was not entirely gentle. The forests pulsed with energy, streams hummed with sentience, and every step seemed to test their presence. What had appeared as a paradise was now a crucible, subtly pushing humanity to adapt or perish. Captain Alara Thorne walked through the glowing trees with Kale and Soren. The air shimmered with energy that tickled their skin, filling their senses with unease. Every movement of the forest seemed intentional, as if the world itself observed their choices. "Alara," Kyle said quietly, voice taut with tension. "I think it's testing us. Not violently, but probing, seeing if we belong." Soren, who had been examining the soil, nodded. "The anomaly wasn't finished. It brought us here to see if we can survive more than distance, to see if we can endure challenge itself." Alara's jaw tightened. "Then we endure, we adapt. That is what humanity does." As the crew ventured deeper, a sudden shadow fell across the forest. A wave of darkness rolled through the trees, chilling them to their bones despite the warmth of twin suns above. Strange forms flickered at the edges of vision. Creatures, perhaps, or illusions, shapes that mirrored their deepest fears. Failure, loss, loneliness. "This is a trial," Alara said, steadying herself. "We've crossed space, left our world, survived the anomaly. This is no different. We survive again." One by one, the crew confronted their fears. Soren froze when an apparition of his lost family appeared, whispering that he could never succeed, that he had already failed them. Kale faced visions of cities crumbling, of humanity itself perishing because they had dared to leave Earth. And Alara, she felt the weight of every decision, every life she was responsible for, pressing down like a mountain on her chest. Yet each time, humanity's response was the same: courage. Not reckless courage, but deliberate, fragile, unyielding courage. They acknowledged fear, faced it, and moved forward. Shadows dissolved with every step, light returning not because the darkness fled, but because humans refused to bow to it. Miles away, the council watched, their ancient hearts trembling in ways they did not understand. Selena pressed her hands to the console, a rare tremor of panic in her crystalline frame. They face a world beyond our calculation, and yet they endure. They transform trial into triumph. Sylar's voice was low, almost reverent. "No species should survive like this. No species should rise beyond fear, beyond expectation, beyond limitation. And yet, they do." The shadows intensified, swirling into a storm that threatened to consume the humans. Trees bent unnaturally, streams boiled with unseen force, and the sky darkened, as if the twin suns themselves recoiled. The anomaly, now bound to the planet, had presented its ultimate test: survival against overwhelming, unseen forces, and humanity responded as it always had. Together, Ilara's crew linked hands, forming a circle, eyes closed, focusing on what they carried inside: hope, courage, trust, and a stubborn refusal to give in. The shadows hesitated, quivering at the strength of the human will. And then slowly the darkness dissipated, retreating like mist before a rising sun. The council gasped, though no sound passed between them. Zyler's eyes glowed brighter than usual. They did not merely survive, they conquered fear itself, not by force but by unity, by spirit. Selena's hand hovered above the console. "It's impossible. They should have faltered. They should have failed. Yet, here they are, intact, thriving, resilient. On the planet, the humans stood together, fragile bodies trembling, hearts pounding, yet unbroken. They had faced the trial of shadows and survived. The forest pulsed gently as though acknowledging their victory, offering a quiet, tentative approval. Alara looked at her crew. "We are fragile," she said, voice steady despite exhaustion. "But we endure always. That is humanity's gift. That is humanity's power." Miles above, the council recoiled. They had studied civilizations across millennia, observed countless species, and yet they had never encountered anything like this. Humanity's courage, their fragile resilience, their ability to thrive against impossible odds. It was beyond comprehension. And in that realization, the first spark of true terror ignited. Humanity was no longer a subject. Humanity was a force capable of turning trial into triumph, danger into discovery, fear into resolve. And the council, ancient and wise though they were, understood that what they had dismissed as fragile imperfection was, in truth, the most unstoppable force in the galaxy. The regret that had begun as curiosity now roared like a supernova, blinding and brilliant. They had underestimated humans. They had dismissed them, and now there was no turning back. Somewhere in the silence of space, across light years and stars, humanity slept that night, tired, fragile, unbroken, and unknowingly unstoppable. Dawn broke over the radiant planet, twin suns casting amber and violet light across the glowing forests. Captain Alara Thorne stood at the edge of a crystalline cliff, gazing at the horizon. The planet hummed beneath her feet, alive and aware, yet she felt no fear, only an expansive, quiet determination. Humanity had survived the anomaly, endured the trial of shadows, and now faced a world brimming with possibility. Kale approached, carrying supplies and a small device that projected maps of the planet. "Captain, we've scouted the southern valleys. Rich soil, abundant water, minerals beyond anything we've seen. It's perfect," Alara nodded. "Perfect enough to begin, but not perfect enough to forget caution. This is our chance to build, to grow, and to honor every soul that dared to dream of the stars." The humans spread across the planet, fragile bodies moving with deliberate care. Children laughed as they chased creatures that shimmered like living light. Adults worked to understand the alien ecosystem, and together, they laid the foundations of settlements that would endure. Every action was a statement. Humanity would survive, thrive, and honor the fragile brilliance of life itself. Far away, in the crystalline chambers of the council, silence reigned. Xylar's gaze remained fixed on the holographic representation of the humans, unblinking, awestruck and fearful. "They are beyond containment," he whispered, "beyond calculation. Every attempt to measure them fails. Every prediction is shattered." Selena pressed her hands to the console, crystalline fingers trembling. "We observed them. We studied them. We judged them. And we were wrong. Entirely, they are not fragile. They are not limited. They are a force of life itself." Xylar's eyes flickered with light, something ancient and deep stirring within him. "For the first time in millennia, I feel fear, not for ourselves, but for the certainty we once held. We have underestimated something unstoppable." Back on the planet, Alara stood with her crew atop the cliff. The wind carried scents of alien flowers. Streams of energy pulsed beneath their feet, and above, the twin suns glimmered with promise. She lifted her hand to the sky. "We are small," she said softly, "but we endure. We are fragile, but unbroken, and we are the sum of every hope, every dream, every step that brought us to this moment." The crew looked at her, hearts swelling with courage. They had crossed impossible distances, faced trials that would have destroyed any other species, and yet here they were, alive, united and stronger than they had ever imagined. A ripple of energy pulsed from the forests, the streams, the very ground beneath them, as if the planet itself acknowledged their triumph. Humanity's persistence had transformed fear into knowledge, doubt into courage, and fragility into resilience. And far above, the council felt a surge of awareness, a recognition that echoed across their ancient minds. Humanity was not a species to observe. Humanity was a force, a light too brilliant to be contained, too powerful to be ignored, too resilient to ever be measured. Xylar's voice trembled, resonating like a supernova across the chamber. "We dismissed them. We calculated them. We assumed they were fragile, fleeting, incapable of reaching beyond their cradle. And now to regret burns like a star we cannot extinguish. We should have known. We should have seen. We should have valued their spirit. Selena's eyes glowed faintly. It is too late. We can no longer contain or control what they have become. They are not bound by fear, by logic, by expectation. Humanity is uncontainable. On the planet, Ilara's gaze swept across the glowing horizon. We are the stewards of this new world, she said, voice steady, unwavering. We are fragile, yes, but we endure. We are humanity, and we will not falter. The council remained silent, ancient forms trembling with awe and the first true understanding of the price of underestimation. Humanity had crossed every boundary, defied every expectation, and now, standing on the edge of a new dawn, they radiated a light that could never be dimmed. For the first time in millennia, the keepers of balance realized that they had witnessed not just survival, but transcendence. Humanity was no longer fragile. Humanity was unstoppable, and as the twin suns rose fully over the planet, the council's regret burned brighter than any star, a supernova of acknowledgement, awe, and the humbling realization that the spark they had dismissed was, in truth, a blaze that would light the universe itself. Somewhere in the silence of space, across galaxies and aeons, humanity laughed, dreamed, built, and endured. Fragile, unbroken, and extraordinary, the uncontainable light of humanity had begun.